really must settle down after all of that, because Edwina Currie has been called lots and lots of things in her stormy political career, but newspaper editors will think particularly carefully before referring to her in the future. Earlier this week, Edwina successfully sued the Observer newspaper and was awarded £5,000 damages. At issue was an article which compared her to a fictitious character who'd kill to save her political skin. Now, during the hearing, there were still more Edwina headlines as the press picked up a reference in court to the contents of her lingerie cupboard. So will you give a very big welcome to Edwina Currie. Edwina, you have had a fair bit of criticism in your time, so why did you particularly decide to go for this one?
Well, I think politicians should put up with a lot of criticism. I think that's part of the game, part of the job. And I've never felt in any way under threat or troubled by much of what's said in political terms, apart from anything else, because I can usually give as good as I get. And I quite enjoy getting involved in political debate and argument. But it's when it gets a bit closer to home and where they start making comments about your personal life. I mean, you'll know the sort of thing that they get up to. And I've always felt that the women members of Parliament particularly, and perhaps women in public life in general, are subject to far more scrutiny and far more really rather unpleasant stuff than some of our male colleagues.
Well, do you think it's imbalanced, do you?
Well, I mean, I can't imagine anyone being frightfully interested in you know, what kind of socks some of our male colleagues wear. But they take a tremendous amount of interest in our hose and so on. And it gets to the point where you feel, oh, this is really getting a bit silly. But still, I'd never done anything about it. I'd never sued anybody. The point where I drew the line was when my name appeared quite gratuitously, and I'm quite sure by accident, in an article in which I was compared with a character in a film who didn't just kill to save her career, but she did all sorts of things. It undermined her capacity for marriage and motherhood. Her career became much more important to her. She neglected her family. She drove her husband to drink. I mean, she did all sorts of horrendous things. I actually saw the film, and she wasn't even a very good politician. She even neglected her work, but didn't say so in the article.
Is that what offended you most, then?
I think what I found really offensive was the idea that a newspaper could simply say an Edwina Currie figure is or could be or might be somebody that neglects her family and that has no capacity for marriage, especially because, you know, I've been married a long time and I do try hard.
On the other hand, I suppose some people might say, well, look, it wasn't about you. It was a comment actually by Charlotte Rampling, who was in the film. He was actually quoting her. So really, why take so much offence?
Well, that's a good question. I did hesitate about it, especially because Ms. Rampling was busy saying, oh, there's nothing like her, Charlotte, in the character. And I thought, well, there's nothing like me in the character either. That's not fair. And I think you just, there is for most people a point at which you draw the line. I don't mind what they say about politics, but my family and my family life, I work hard for my family, I put them first. I don't do engagements on Sundays, that sort of thing. It's a family day. And at that point, I say, you are not saying that about me.
But you've been called Cruella, you know, from the 101 Dalmatians. You've been called Vindaloo. I thought you would have been quite offended at those names.
Well, it depends how you take it. Some of those are light-hearted. Some could go either way. I mean, I have Asian constituents, and they tell me that a Vindaloo curry, which is obviously a play on the name, is something that's hot and spicy and lively and not bland. If somebody called me bland, I think that would be the point at which I might sue.
Oh, really? So newspapers beware of the word bland.
I was really trying to make a general point as well, and I'm awfully glad on behalf of the many women that have phoned up and that have written to me in the last few days. I'm very glad I did make that stand. I think our personal lives and our private lives are substantially our own business. I mean, I can see for politicians, you go one step further, because a politician is saying, will you take me, Edwina Currie, to represent you? Can I be your stand-in? Will you elect me to speak for you? And I can see then that the personal life and the moral stand is important, but there is a limit.
Am I right in saying that at the beginning that really what you went after initially was an apology, but then the whole thing sort of went further than that?
Yes, I tried very hard just to get an apology. I don't like the sort of people that want to take newspapers to the cleaners, and I even stood up in court and said I do not want large damages. You can see all the lawyers twitching at that. But that wasn't the purpose at all. The purpose was to effectively to stop the newspaper saying things like that. And I think, as you said in your introduction, I've succeeded. But also to dig out, if I possibly could, a retraction and an apology, which I'd failed to do by any other means. And I got a lovely apology in court.
A good big
Wonderful,
apology.
a proper one, yes.
Yes, no, let's come to the point of, say, the Press Council, which was set up not all that long ago to try and protect individuals. Do you feel that that just simply doesn't work?
Well, we've been fiddling around with all these new systems for the press, and I'm not sure that they are yet satisfactory. Nobody can make a newspaper apologise. All these systems at the moment have a voluntary element in them, and the newspapers particularly have been asked to put their own house in order. It's only really by the threat of legal action that you can get anywhere, and that's not open to most people. I mean, you run a hell of a risk doing that kind of thing. But also, I discovered that the court can't make the paper apologise. You don't have the right to go to court and say, I want an apology. You only have the right to go to court and say, have I been defamed? And the answer was yes. And in that case, you have to ask for damages. That's the technique. Well, I don't think that's right. I have a feeling we are going to have to change the law.
Of course, the newspapers obviously are going to pass comment now on this particular case quite a lot. I mean, I'm quoting from Richard Littlejohn in today's Sun newspaper. He says, and I quote, Edwina Currie caused untold damage to the British egg industry with rash remarks and salmonella. Now, the implication being that you can dish out criticism, but yet can't take it.
Well, I would also say that the British egg industry at the time was doing an awful lot of damage to itself and to the health of a large number of people.
For example,
no, they didn't.
In hindsight.
They did not sue me. They threatened to sue, but and I was more. One of the reasons I didn't say much at the time was I was more prepared to see them in court and to put what I thought was the right point of view. And in fact, the government, of course, has changed all the law on food safety since. So I don't need to respond to that rather silly comment. But I tell you what, the Sun's been up to. The Sun has been phoning up people that know me, would you believe, and offering them £1,000 to say whether I wear stockings and suspenders or not.
So have they given the information or not?
I think my secretary was toying with the idea on the basis that maybe we might share it. But I mean, I think that's outrageous.
How did all of that occur in the court originally about your underwear?
I made a comment about Janet Regier, or I don't know how it's pronounced, Janet Regier underwear, you know, the lovely lacy stuff. It's a Derbyshire company. It's based in Wirksworth. And at the time, they were in some difficulty, and in fact, the company has been taken over. And, you know, if there's anything you can do to help a local company, then you will. I mean, I drive a Toyota car because we got those in the constituency as well. And it was really just saying, oh, I'd love some Janet Regier underwear. And everybody said, oh, what she wants is...
So it was picked up?
Well, yes, I mean, one hoped it would be, but not for any personal reason.
Well, you never know. Maybe if we read it tomorrow, we might have all the details and exclusive to the Sun. But nevertheless, Edwina, thank you for joining us in the studio this morning. Always interesting to talk to you. Thank you.
My pleasure.